So crossovers, everybody's got one, but if you really think about it, there's two different buckets. There's a one over here where you get a lot of people and a lot of dogs into front-wheel drive based crossovers. Then over here you get fancy things like BMW, Lexus, Mercedes. However, the lines, they're about to get blurred from an unlikely source. Okay, so what exactly is this blurred line? Well, it's an all-new Mazda, one that's based on a new large platform. Now, I can't tell you the specific dimensions because Mazda hasn't shared the specific dimensions, but if I use my unscientific test here, which is my 11 size shoe going all the way down here, the wheelbase, it's about 118, almost 119, which is a good size larger than a CX-9, which means this is going to be a 3-row. Now, when I say 3-row, that's somewhere between 6 and 8 seats, all depending on whether the center row is fitted with captain's chairs. Now, putting aside dimensions and packaging a lot of people and a lot of dogs, the real significant change here is in the front. And that would be the propulsion system, but not specifically the propulsion system itself, but where it's mounted in the car. Now, most vehicles like this, crossovers like Toyota Highlanders, the engine goes this way because it's a front-wheel drive based vehicle. This is like a BMW X5 or a Mercedes GLE, where the engine goes this way, so it's a rear-wheel drive biased vehicle. This is a humongous change in this type of equation because it's switching from like a mass market vehicle like a Highlander, even though they can get very expensive, to something more premium like a BMW. But Mazda, they've been talking premium for a long time. This is the first time where premium, they're actually writing the check of premium by making a platform that is engineered to be rear-wheel drive from the get-go. Now that's all fine and good, but what's driving those rear wheels, or in this case, all wheels, because all of them come as all-wheel drive with a rear-wheel drive bias, and that would be two different propulsion systems. There is a 3.3-liter inline 6-cylinder engine. You heard me correct. An inline 6, an equation like a BMW. Now this brings up the question, why would Mazda go inline 6? Everybody's going 4 cylinders, plug-in hybrid or full electric. What's happening here? Well, if you think about what Mazda is, they are a company that has to make money on each car. They're not like Toyota, where they can lose some money on certain cars and then make money on expensive cars. Here they have to make money on everything. So if you think about the development cost of an inline 4-cylinder engine and then switching to a V6, that's more money than extending out 2 more cylinders and making an inline 6-cylinder engine. So in this case, it's a mild hybrid system, so there's an electric motor that sits between the engine and the transmission. Now, putting both together, that translates to 340 horsepower and 369 pounds of torque. Then there's a plug-in hybrid. The basis of that system is the 2.54 we've seen in many other Mazdas, and that works in conjunction with a 17.8 kilowatt-hour battery. I'd love to tell you what the actual electric driving range of the plug-in hybrid is, but Mazda hasn't shared that with me. However, if you look at other markets, other plug-in hybrids, very similar numbers, so my guess is it's probably going to be the same here. Now, 2 incredibly important points. Number 1, with the inline 6, there's no EV-only mode. What that electric motor that sits between the engine and the transmission does is torque fill. So think of like the extra torque that you would get in a diesel engine, you get here in an inline 6 gas engine. Then there's a transmission, and here it's an 8-speed, but not a torque converter like other Mazda applications. Instead, it's a wet multiplate clutch. Now, why did they do this? You may remember in previous Mazda episodes where Coleman would come on and drone on and on and on about the direct ratio with the torque converter to get the efficiency of Skyactiv and all that kind of stuff. You can go back and check those out in previous episodes. But here, this is the next iteration of the efficiency of Skyactiv that they've now optimized for the 6-cylinder and the plug-in hybrid with almost 370 pounds of torque. Then we have to focus on what Mazda is unusually good about, and that would be the interior. And here, this is a combination of what we expect from Mazda, and then a progression of what Mazda has been doing over the past couple of years. First, what we expect from Mazda. You look at this, and it's very familiar. It's like the designs from other Mazdas. But this, everything's a bit bigger. The dashboard feels wider. The screen looks bigger. There are more toggle switches. There are more switches for the HVAC and other controls. The console, it not only feels wider, there's more controls around the unifying controller here. But then there's the tactile feel. There is the fit and finish. There is the build quality on this thing. You and I, we've talked about this whole thing about Mazda saying, oh, we're going premium. But this is really the first time we're seeing hard points, things you can actually touch, like rear-wheel drive architecture, an inline 6-cylinder engine, and then this. This is usually fake carbon fiber, black piano plastic, or in some cases, wood. Here, they've done this wonderful Japanese-inspired textile that culminates with this one detail that runs the width of the dashboard. And it's not just on the dashboard. This entire tactile feel experience extends to all 4 door panels. Then there's wood. I don't know if it's real wood. If you remember in the CX-9, there was one trim level where they took the wood from piano manufacturers. I don't know if that's the case here. They haven't given me all the detail. But put it all together with things like larger toggle switches and the fact that it's still a unified controller, something we see in BMWs, which is the reference. It's a magnificent place to be. I don't want to go so far as to saying that this is as big of a deal as the platform change. That's something we're going to have to learn by spending time behind the wheel of the vehicle. Another detail that they have here is the electronic camera rear view mirror system. We've seen this in Corvettes, Cadillacs, and other cars, and now it's extending to here a Mazda. Now, how do we put all this together? A little bit behind the scenes before you and I part ways for the day. Here in Southern California for the past month, the sky has literally opened and it has been like Ice Station Zebra. That's why Mazda, they kind of pulled a rabbit out of a hat in introducing this thing here in Malibu. So what you're seeing is actually 3 different cars. But notice I had to finish this underneath a carnival tent because the sky has again opened. Now let's focus on what we have learned today. And here I would argue this is more about the design, at least at this point, until we drive it, and they tell me that's going to be somewhere towards the end of March. And if you look at this thing in person, you see what's changed, not just the look, it's the proportions of the vehicle. You look at the CX-9 that came before it, good-looking car, and was miles ahead the CX-9 that came from the Ford days. This changes all that. The proportions of this are closer to that of a modern-day Mercedes design and Mercedes proportions than, say, a Toyota Highlander. Now, we're going to have to put that off to the side, and frankly, this is more about what you can see rather than me tell you, because the next step is for us to drive the car, which brings us to the wish list. And here, you know what I'm going to say. I love Mazdas. I love Coleman. The interior of this is artwork. However, let's not make it as expensive as an Audi, which you look at a Q7 equipped like this, you're talking 75, 80 grand. I don't think they're going to get there, but I'd like to see this in this trim level. How about low 50s? Because that's where a Telluride is, and that's where people are clamoring to go more so than the Palisade. But I'm just one man, and this is the point of the episode where I turn this around to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV all word, MotoManTV all word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, if you got value out of this episode, I would greatly appreciate you sharing this episode with all your friends on your socials. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später.